Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the Bridge Between podcast, episode 7. We made it. This has been quite the journey. We had Jasmine, aka Soul Divinity, in our last episode. Definitely check it out. Lots of wisdom, lots of gems as when it comes to magic and working with food and Jasmine's journey. And it was just really beautiful to have that time with her transparency of where she is now and where she wants to go. Very special guest that we had. And today there's a couple of topics that we want to talk to as far as practices of spirituality and practitioners and just guidance into some of the things that we've been seeing theme-wise in October. Thank you to everybody who's been watching us and sharing, liking, subscribing, who's been tapping into our lives. We've been doing a couple of lives this month, giving away some Oracle decks. Definitely check us out on the other platforms, Apple, Overcast, Spotify, all the things. We'll definitely list them below. Before we get started on this juicy topic, I'm going to send it over to Erica for the card of the day.
All right, guys. Today, I'm going to be working with Archer's Discernment Oracle deck. Let's see what messages we have with the collective. As always, truth be told, may this message resonate with anyone and everyone who sees it. Whenever they see it, truth be told. Oh, this one flipped over. Okay, so high importance is the first message. And it's also connected with the number 8. So I'm hearing a few things. The first is to prioritize what is most important to you right now, meaning eliminate distractions. But also, because this card just flew out, I just noticed it was lying on the couch. Self-absorbed came out also with the number 1. And a lot of people will assume self-absorbed is like a negative thing, but it doesn't have to be. I think what Spirit is saying is to put yourself as high importance right now and to be a little bit more selfish in a sense with your energy, but not in a negative way, just in terms of like putting your own personal wellness and health first. And I was drawn to the number 8 because I'm getting the energy of just like karmic, both learning, ending karmic cycles right now, like cleansing that away, and learning the lessons that are really important to learn right now, so you don't have to keep repeating the lesson. But also the number 1 is with self-absorbed energy. So the number 1 is all about the first step, focusing on you, a new beginning. So I think what Spirit is wanting us to know right now is it's super important to put our personal wellness first. It's really important that we learn these lessons of these uncomfortable cycles that we've been seeing repeating over and over and over. Learn the lesson, handle it differently, because that is how you break the karmic cycle in a healthy way as possible, so we don't have to keep repeating it over and over.
Yes. I think that's such a great message right now.
Yeah, and we're talking about like practitioners and how we go about like energy work. I think it's super important to like know what those cycles are, so that when we go see practitioners, it's about getting deeper into like the root of this issue. How do we dissolve it? And I feel like that takes a lot of vulnerability, but also it takes a lot of integrity to look at yourself in that way, like to being like, what am I here to learn? Making sure that we're releasing these constant cycles that are not just of this lifetime, and being mindful of like the deep subconscious triggers that can come up from experiences that our soul has been on, or our lineage or our ancestors. This is a huge ancestor time to connect with their magic, which is beautiful through offerings. But this is also a great window to being like, what am I here as an individual, as this consciousness, as Sosa this lifetime? What am I here to dissolve for the women in my family? A lot of us have, not a lot of us, but some of us have had ancestors that have crossed over in a very traumatic way, or through suicide, through death, through violence, through all kinds of things. And it's like we want to bring peace to those parts in our lineage that didn't think that we were good enough. At the end of the day, it's like that reminder of like, if it's happening outside of you, in your outside world, it's happening in your inner world. Even the polarity that we experience in the collective So those are, yeah, and it takes a lot of vulnerability and integrity to really check yourself.
And even if we look at those messages too, in the more shadow side of self-absorbed, or the more negative side of self-absorbed and high importance, then I think, funny enough, going on one of the topics we were planning on talking about today anyway, just making sure that if you're going to get spiritual help from someone, just making sure that they are not a self-absorbed individual that's just out for their own gain, because unfortunately there is a shadow side to this world, the spiritual world, and where people want to help people, not because they want to help people, but just because they want to feel needed, or they want to feel like a guru, or they want to be worshipped even. So I think high importance is doing your research and really feeling out people's energy before you open up in that way to them and put yourself in a vulnerable position. So there's a shadow side to that message too, but also the positive side of it's okay to be self-absorbed yourself and just put your needs first as well. So take what resonates and release what doesn't.
Yes, definitely. I think the decision and choice to decide you want to go get some healing from a spiritual practitioner can be somewhat be a self-absorbed decision to make. Like, it's still only about you. The healing, I mean, obviously when you heal, you become a greater person to the world around you, but to choose to do that for yourself is like no one really benefits in the beginning besides just you. And that's okay to want to go get this healing just for yourself if that's the only reason that you have to go do something. Because a lot of people, I think they want to go heal for other people. They get like inspired, like, oh, I hate to say this, but there's like a toxic way people try to heal for their partner, or they try to heal for because their family or like has this idea of them. Heal because you want to become a greater person to yourself. You want to live a better life. You just want to show up in the world better, and make sure when you're choosing someone to help you and facilitate these healing, modalities, that this isn't a person that is not doing it for their own reasons, like helping themselves almost. Because, like Erica said, unfortunately, there are people that are just doing it for the attention, and we have to realize that there is a shadow to all this light work that people do.
I want to tie into like practitioner work when it comes to the opposite sex and how we work with that energy. Because from personal experience, there was someone I did energy work with last year or sometime ago. And this is not the first time this has happened with men, but men get aroused with energy work. And it's not that it is exactly sexual, but it is related to the Kundalini energy that does flow during Reiki or any type of body work, really. And it's kind of like suppressing the animalistic and reptilian side of us that feels like I need to act upon this energy versus recognizing the energy as a whole and like how do I work with this? And so for me, it's like I'm actually very great because of the trauma that I've experienced. I'm really great at shutting down sexual energy very quickly. And I used to be extremely intimidated by it because it's like, oh, they see me that way, but it's like I don't see them that way. I'm doing something right now, and it's like you can't allow that to flow because if you're holding space for someone, and let's say the opposite sex that you're working with as a client is attracted to you or you feel them being aroused, knowing how to like tone it down, knowing how to like really step into the energy field with that person and being like, how can I neutralize this right now so that they feel comfortable? Because if we don't catch it, we don't catch this attachment that happens between client and practitioner sometimes, especially with opposite sex, or it could be same sex. It depends, if you have that attraction with a woman or a man with man. Knowing how to like bring it down to what am I here to learn? Like how am I here to work with this energy? But if you think about it, guys, like we don't really have enough or any solid like sexual education when it comes around energy and kundalini and how we work with that. Like the birds and the bees didn't really do it. Like that was kind of like how you have a child, but how do we work with this energy? And it's like beyond puberty. Like I feel like parents have that discussion with kids who go through puberty, but like as adults, like how do we set boundaries with ourselves and how do we work with that energy? And I guess that's kind of our work as humans to not I guess feed into temptation, but I'm also cautious to use that word and how we use temptation, because it's, again, it's like, who is it serving? Is it serving everybody's highest good here?
Yeah, I also think too, it also ties into the concept of sexually transmitted demons or spiritually transmitted demons, because you can be tempted in that moment to maybe, like, I know so many times and stories of people getting involved with like what they call a quote unquote spiritual guru, which I think all of us here are in agreement that, like, we're not really a fan of people that associate themselves as guru, because everyone's always learning all this journey. And so nobody is above anyone else. Nobody is a full on quote unquote expert. I guess it could be argued if people aren't an expert, but on anything, but we're always learning. There's always more growth. But I know so many people that have given into that quote unquote temptation because in the moment, I think what's happening in that spirit, because you are working with this person in a spiritual sense, and like you said, the kundalini is there, and so you feel seen. I think what it is in that moment, you're feeling seen. Both the people are feeling seen, but if one of those people is not continuously doing the healing work, or let's say you get involved with the quote unquote guru, right? You are now have a crush on them, or like got sexually involved with them, but guess what? If they are not setting the boundaries, because they like to be seen too, and if they're not setting the boundaries with other people, you think you're having this special intense moment and connecting with this person on such a deep level, but they're connecting with Susie and Sally and Becky and Shaniqua. All of these people are also getting seen too and getting healing. So then you are taking on, that person may be taking on all of these people's inner demons and your inner demons, and it's getting swapped and back and forth and all around. And this is kind of when it comes to, like, you have to kind of think beyond that moment of immediate gratification and all of that, because you don't know what somebody's doing once the session is over, because once your session is over, they have other sessions with people. And we're not saying everybody is like this, but I've heard plenty of stories of people, especially unfortunately men, and unfortunately melanated men mostly, getting their egos fed by like working with women spiritually to help heal them. And I've even heard horror stories of people lying and saying, like, in order to heal you, you have to have sex with me, because that's the only way I can get that spiritual trauma and that attachment out of you. You have to have sex with me. So just be cautious, you guys. Use your discernment, because yeah, I think I'm done on that.
Yes, and
I think we're just done with the whole episode. That was like, you just dropped the mic like 3 times. That's a wrap. That's a wrap.
No, like literally, like everything, everything. And that
Yeah.
also goes back to like fathers and priests in churches that are spiritual beings, that are like pastors, that are leaders and healers for the community, you know, supposed to be being this great father like figure, and that end up abusing people, like children, adults, whoever it may be, and say, you know, use God as an excuse, or use that as their advantage, use spirituality to their advantage to take advantage of people that really need healing and that really need help. And it's really um sad that it happens, that people get taken advantage of, but also this is why we're doing this, talking about this, so we can raise awareness that not everyone has your best interest in mind, and make sure you're using your intuition and discernment on as to why you're picking the spiritual practitioner, because we talked about that a little bit too in the last episode about using your intuition to make decisions and choices, and make sure this is sitting right with you. Like, are you attracted to this person's work, or do you think they look good, like you think they're cute, or you know what I mean? Because not saying that that's why people get picked, but I'm just saying really sit with yourself as to why you're choosing this person, why you're choosing to work with these people.
I think one of the main things that jumped out to me when Erica was saying about like their need to be seen, like their need that, and they get that fulfilled with a one-on-one practice with a practitioner, because we're, as a practitioner, as a reader, what have you, you're there to really hold the space for that person. So it's kind of like you need to go in that like Bruce Lee mode. So like you are literally combating their inner demons, like whatever shit that's coming up. And unfortunately, I've definitely been in a lot of situations, even like yoga teachers or like certain people that lead groups in general. You could kind of see when someone is getting a high from being seen versus delivering their message, for, you know, or really being there for everyone. So it's kind of like that thing where like we have to remember that we're all messengers. So like it's not even about us. It's about like what we're here to deliver and how we can step up into our higher purpose. Because like look at the world around us. Like like all of us, and even practitioners, we all need to like reevaluate even just like the way we've been doing work, because the last 2 years has been extremely challenging for a lot of people, and it's a very sensitive time for a lot of people. So a lot of shadow shit has been coming up. So like how do we hold space for people without cuddling some of these obstacles in their life so they don't repeat these cycles anymore?
That's something that the boundaries, not necessarily in the sexual sense, but just in terms of not taking on somebody else's emotions when I'm reading for them and things like that, it's been an up and down battle for me from the time I started readings over a decade ago, because I remember times where there was a period where I was not setting those firm boundaries, and like I was feeling like way too much for like what the of what my client was telling me or whoever I was helping was telling me in the moment. And then I went through a period where I was like, I came across just way too cold, because I was just like forgetting to have that full on compassion in terms of knowing where that person was right now in their trauma and their healing, and just like giving the message only, and like forgetting that this person is still working through pain right now. So even though like the message I'm receiving may be truth, their pain is just like not allowing them to compute, you know? So I had to get to the middle ground of being straightforward, not like you said, like cuddling, because I'm not here to like, what's the word? Enable toxic behavior. Some clients want, I don't know if it's not that they purposely want you to, but they want you to just be like sugarcoat it and put it in a nice package. But it's like, there's no way I can tell you in an extremely nice way that the person that you are obsessing about is very bad for you and does not want what you want. Like, I still have to be to the point. I can have compassion for you now in the sense that like, I understand that you haven't reached a certain level in your own healing journey yet. So you're not understanding your worth at this time, and saying that in a nice way. But I can't like just tell you what you want to hear, you know? So I've had to get to a middle ground and learn how to set those boundaries of these are the messages, but I can't show you how much I understand more than people realize sometimes. And I'm sure you guys can relate, especially Raina, who like just did a huge event recently. I understand more than people realize the pain they're experiencing, but I can't show that. Because if I show that, then it's almost like that's like going to a therapy session and then the therapist breaking down and crying too. Like, that doesn't really work well. You know what I mean? Like, I understand certain cases. Yeah, I can understand a therapist showing emotion, but like if they're supposed to be like your support system right now in that sense, you know what I mean? It's like they can't be there, you know, fully boohooing too, because it's bringing up their trauma too. So hopefully I'm making sense, but there has to be like a middle ground. And so I've learned to have to set boundaries, because like you said, if you don't set those boundaries, you take on too much. And so I guess spirit agrees, because there's sirens going off right now.
That's actually one of my questions, I guess, for you, Erica, because I think honestly, out of the three of us, you're the one who's most hypersensitive, and that hypersensitivity is not to mean like emotional. When I say sensitivity, y'all, I also mean like for sensory, to feel beyond the 3D reality. And I've had situations where I've had to even tell relatives who are quote unquote on the other side to like relax, that I will deliver the message to the other person, but they need to like chill, because it's this need to like communicate from other dimensions and how things come in and how we filter it. And sometimes it just, for me, sometimes it comes in like a truck, and it just like all this information comes in, and then we work in different realms. We don't work in this like 3D reality. We're working in all dimensions, all across all lifetimes. We are the type of people that are very intuitive of like what the person soul is going through, and like how we want them to see them in a balanced, harmonious way. And I think, Erica, I guess, do you have any like practices that you do, or is there anything that comes to mind where you felt like super overwhelmed with this energy, like, oh my God, I really can't read this person, or like I need to take a breath, or I need to take water? Like, what are some of the things that, even like I'm thinking when Raina just did this big event and she has to do readings back to back, and we're talking about the constant amount of energy from one person to the other. So it's like literally it's a lot going on. So like what are some of those ways that you ground, or the techniques that you use to work with that energy?
For me, breathing. There, I used to forget to breathe sometimes doing readings because I was channeling and I literally would forget to breathe. So breathing in between, like there's been some times that I'll have clients that are super anxious and my heart will just be going, and I can feel their anxious energy, and they're doing question after question. Do they love me? Are they ever going to come back? Da, 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 da. And so it's then making my heart race because I'm feeling their anxiousness. So I used to forget to breathe, but now I'm just like, okay, ooh, let me breathe. I breathe. And also I have like this bell stays right here. So I'll do like a quick ring of the bell, or spray Florida water, or just water in general, just programming whatever beverage I have to like calm it down, to ground the messages come through, programming whatever beverage I have. Like this is seltzer water, but I can program this too, and may even like associate it with some heart chakra healing because it's a green can. And so if I'm doing readings and I take a sip, it's like, okay, I'm recharged, and keep going. So, oops, there, the bell just rang. Spirit was like, clear the energy. So just things like that in a quick moment, because a lot of the times, especially if you're doing like an event, or if you are doing a reading that's timed, you don't always have too much time to really you got to find quick ways to calm it down, ground yourself, and deliver the message in a calm way. So you're not feeling like the client's feeling this one, the heart going. So those are some of the things I do just to go as fast as I can to channel these messages. And also in some ways it's like sometimes I have to put it this way, but sometimes it's almost like I have to like just know that they may not be fully happy with the way I'm saying things, in a sense, because it's not like how do I explain it? It's like I'm here to tell you the truth, not to like I'm not purposely trying to hurt your feelings or anything like that. So sometimes I just have to be as direct as possible. And I guess some people kind of see it as, I don't know, robotic sometimes, but it's not meant to be that way, because I try to say it as positive as possible, but I can't let myself get too wrapped up into making the client feel too happy all the time, because I'm not always here to make the person happy. I'm here to help, if that makes sense. I can't find the words. It's a feeling I'm feeling, but maybe one of you guys can explain like what I'm trying to say.
I also feel like people have a misconception of what readings are. So they have like this like Miss Cleo type of mystic delivery. Right. But like what you're saying is that, or what Erica is trying to say is that most readers are able to tap into a certain frequency that is really tapped into like higher consciousness, source, God, however you want to call it. And there's just neutrality there. It's just, we are that messenger, we are that vessel.
That's
in that
the
moment.
word.
And yeah,
Neutrality.
It's like we're not here, we're here to serve the highest good, and that delivery comes how that person needs it. And I think when we're reaching out for assistance or guidance, making sure that we're not seeing them as gurus, making sure that we are seeing feeling our inner guru, or seeing those that we think that are gurus more as reflections versus, someone that we're putting on a pedestal. And that's what I've learned, and I'm still learning, to be very honest, to not do that with anyone at all.
Yeah. And that's also one of the things too, as reminding people readings and spiritual work is meant to be a navigational tool for you. It's not meant to, I know a lot of people come to us thinking we're going to read their whole entire life, give them all of the answers, and this is how it is. But that's not how it works. We're a lot of the time we're meant to live into the answers. That's what life is. You experience things. So use readings and spiritual work is meant to be a navigational tool for you to make your choices, your decisions, and to go along your journey. And so that's what the word I was looking for, but it was not coming out. Neutrality is what Sosa was saying, because it's not meant to sway one way or the other. You can have the information, but then make the choice for yourself. And I also think it was my friend Javia on one of her lives. She made a good point. And if I sneeze, I feel it coming. But she was saying how when people come to a reading, stop and ask yourself before you get a reading, are you coming from a place of trust or are you coming from a place of anxiety? Because even if there is some anxiety, there is some fear, but you're coming from a place of trust, that means that you're still open to receiving whatever message comes through. You're neutral and trusting whatever comes through. And at the end of the day, you still have the power and the control to make your choice. But if you're coming from a place of anxiousness, and either you want to just feel better and you just want to hear whatever, these are my words now, but like some people will come from a place of anxiousness of like, I just need to be reassured that this person cares. I just need to be reassured this or that. But if for some reason the message that day, because remember energy is always changing, if for some reason that message that day is not reassuring to you, it's more in the lines of like you need to move on or this or that, well then you then go down through a spiral because you were coming from anxious energy, not trust energy. You wanted what you wanted, or you were just too fearful, because a lot of the time people will just come from a place of worriedness, like worried energy. And I would say, if you are that anxious, remember this: no reading is going to change the outcome right now. So calm down if you can and maybe wait a little bit, wait a few hours. If you're still not better, maybe wait till the next day, then get a reading. Because remember, regardless of what the reading is, it's not going to immediately change the outcome right now. So there's no point in getting a reading when you were sitting there in a downward spiral of anxious energy. It doesn't help anyone. And I think I said this on a YouTube before, it's kind of bad spiritual hygiene for the reader too, because then, like I was saying, how my heart was beating when tapping into somebody's energy, I can't give a full clear reading if your energy is all over and I'm trying to tap in, and then all of a sudden I'm feeling all over, So just some food for thought.
Because I don't even touch my cards or my crystals if I'm not in that right mindset. You know what I mean? I don't even read for myself if I'm feeling anxious or worried about a decision. Like, how am I gonna pull cards on it and ask about it? So how are you gonna go get a reading when you're in that type of place? And like Erica said, you can't come with like a set idea of how it's gonna go as well. Because I feel like there's some people that go in, if they have a specific question, they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna hear this," and it's like you don't know what you're gonna hear. You have to, and we don't know what we're gonna say to you until we get into the thick of it. So we have to not be come into the situation very open-minded and very aware of how we're feeling, and aware of that we cannot control the message, and that this reading is going to go the way that it's supposed to go, and then what happens next is also up to you, because we could tell you, like, you're going to do great at your side project, and then if you never work on your side project, guess what, your side project doesn't go great because you never started working on it. So and then you're gonna get mad at us because we told you your side project was gonna pop. What did you do after that reading to continue to create this future for yourself? Because we can only tell you as it is right now. There's many things that will happen between now and then, or sometimes the readings will make sense later, like because you're on your way to doing this, you're thinking about doing something at this very moment.
This goes back to like Erica's earlier, back in I think it was like episode 1 or 2, we're talking about like our readings, or when we give readings or even sessions, it's a therapy tool, but it's not therapy. So it's like to remember like we're all work in progress. And so what a reading does with someone who's clairvoyant or medium, such as like the work that we do, it's like they're here to really pop your bubble. They're really here to like really bust your shit. But you need to know how to follow up. You need to know how to do the work afterwards. So especially after you do a reading, like find ways to ground. Don't try to do 100 million things after an intense reading. So that means like drink your water, go for a walk, take off your shoes, go walking barefoot on the land. Do some breath work, do some yoga, go for a run, move your body. Try not
Journal
to
the
like,
reading.
yeah, and like try not to be around a lot of people because your energy circuits, your chakras are so open when you go into a reading space. And this is something I learned early on too, when Erica was talking about like, I can't really read you if you're feeling anxious. I could really tell right away, and still to this day, when people are resistant. And I can feel that like wall that they put up. And at the beginning for me, it was very tricky not to, because I think we have really open hearts and very like sympathetic and empathetic, compassionate women. And that's part of our gift that is embodying the feminine, is to be that full divine feminine, nurture, intuitive beingness. But I was doing it way too much, where I was getting emotional almost after every session I did. I would cry like a lot, and it wasn't even my stuff. It was just like I needed to release. So working with spirit and just asking guidance of like, how do I bring more balance to this? Because if I'm going to be doing readings, like I don't want to feel exhausted, and we shouldn't be feeling exhausted after every reading. Or if we're doing a lot of readings back to back, yeah, you might feel some fatigue, but you shouldn't feel like a spiritual hangover. Like I feel like there is such a thing as a spiritual hangover, whether it's right after you do a big event or the next day. Like if you're doing a lot of energy work, there's you have to work with that energy so that it's grounded and held in a safe container. And again, that's integrity. Like a lot of people have to be like you have to take care of your shit. Like no one's going to be holding your hand to do your work. And again, this work is optional. Like you don't have to do this. And so I guess if you're going to see a reader, what is your intention long term, not short term? Because we're not really much of like short term, and we can maybe give you a few months in a forecast, but like there's the construct of time is kind of like up to you, and how like when do you want to work on these side projects? Well, today's always a good day. It's like not thinking that we have to wait for other people to change their mind or for someone to change their heart to like for us to change. Like, and that goes not only for relationships, but like parents, grandparents, relatives, friends, etc. Like not everybody's gonna fit into our little boxes, and that's something I've learned over the course of my healing journey too.
I don't know if Raina wanted to talk about this too, but I've definitely experienced spiritual hangovers before, after like huge events, and or even just because I do readings all day, every day. So even though they're little short readings, tapping into so many people throughout the day, I can definitely get spiritual hangovers at certain, especially like I've noticed certain times when there's things going on within the collective, like a retrograde or a full moon, and everybody's kind of feeling out of sorts. I feel all of that as well. And then there's times where it's like, okay, like I can't really do anything right now. And then all of a sudden I'll get a jolt of energy, and it's like spirit is like, work now. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll work it out, So spiritual hangovers are a real thing. And I also think it's important for people who are coming to readings to understand that future's not set in stone, and energy is always changing. So, and also everybody picks up differently. Like you could get a reading from Sosa, you can get a reading from Raina, you can get a reading from me. We may all pick up on different things. And I've had people before ask like, well, this other reader told me this, do you see it? And I may not see it. It doesn't mean it's not a thing. It's just, that's not what spirit is telling me right now is important for you to hear. So it's not, a lot of the times people will discount one reader or the other, thinking that one is wrong because one didn't see something and the other saw something else. But remember, there's different, what's the word? It's like kind of like butterfly effect. There's different, there can be different potential outcomes depending upon the choice that you make. So where your energy is today might show a different possible perspective or where things could be headed versus tomorrow if you shift your mindset and make some different choices. So I always try to remind people that this is where I see things are probable to go based upon what I'm seeing right now. But again, energy is always changing. And even in still, you brought up time, Sosa, and how like, I forgot what word you used, but basically time is relative. So when people say things like, I want to know what that outcome is, but what is outcome if energy is always changing? So if you ask me, what's the outcome? And I see a breakup, and then you ask another reader, what's the outcome? And they see a reconciliation. Okay, but what point in time are we seeing? Because it doesn't mean either reader is wrong. I may be right at one point in this journey. They may be right also at one point in the journey. So I think people just kind of need to be a little bit more open-minded, and sometimes really just letting it play out. Because I remember it when I was younger and I was just getting into this spiritual world, and I hadn't learned as much as knowledge as I know now, like over a decade in. So I remember thinking this reader was wrong and this one was right, because this person did come back. And so I'm thinking, oh, that other reader was wrong. This person came back. They came back. But then it doesn't work out. And then it turns out the other reader was correct. Neither was wrong or right. They were just seeing different energies at different points in the journey. So I think that it's also important for people to realize that, and also remembering to like be a little bit more mindful in terms of how you phrase questions, because spirit is pretty neutral and direct. So when you say something like an outcome, they're like, first of all, there's not really an outcome because energy is always changing, but then they're like, okay, well, this is the outcome today, so, but it might be different tomorrow. So just kind of, again, more food for thought.
Yes, it's super butterfly effect. And that's why I think people really need to come with open-mindedness, because you can't just yes, we're going to tell you an outcome right now, but like Eric said, time is relative, energy is always changing. So be like aware of that fact before you just go into it. And I think also people just want to be told what to do. It's a lot easier for people to just be like, oh, so and so said this, so I'm gonna go do this. So now I don't have to think and make a choice for myself and make a decision. Like, yay, someone gave me an idea. Like, and when in reality you need to make that choice. And I think that's why another reason why people go get readings or run to go get a reading, because they don't want to go make the choice. And that's why I think sometimes it's hard to give someone or at least that type of person a reading, because you see so many different outcomes, and I'm like, it's kind of just telling me that you're juggling. It's like telling me that you haven't decided. So I think some people also just want to hear someone to tell them what to do and tell them to make a choice. That way they don't have to blame themselves or take accountability for that choice and the outcome and the consequences that come along with it. So it's people just need to be very aware of how they're feeling and where they're going with this and what you really came here for.
I was gonna say a situation that I had earlier in my practice when I was like just exploring what side of, I guess, spirituality I wanted to practice. I was in a ceremony one time, and there was this medium who was leading the ceremony in Santeria. And I had known this person for a few months now, and he was in total mediumship, meaning his consciousness of who he was, let's call him, I don't know, Al. When Al, he wasn't Al anymore. He was this African spirit. Anyways, in the ceremony, he told me that he asked me to sit on his knee for his lap, pretty much, on like one side of his leg, and I did it, and I felt very uncomfortable. And it was one of those moments where I was like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right that I'm like physically this close to this person during mediumship. And I think that's a really important point. That and when we say mediumship, it's like they go into trance, meaning that they're not there. That something else has combined with the energy of that person, and that person becomes kind of like I don't know, a horse of sorts. There's something else riding that person, and it's being very careful to like when we physically interact with people in mediumship. So that was a huge lesson to me in how we keep boundaries even when we feel like I'm nervous or like everybody's watching, because in this ceremony there was at least like 30 people around me. So like for me to being like tell the main person who was running that ceremony, like, no, I'm not gonna sit on your lap. It was like I didn't even know how to voice that. That was like the last time it happened. Like nothing, it was like nothing wild. It was kind of like you're sitting on your grandpa's like, leg, I guess, or thigh. I don't know how you want to call it. That sounds like sexual as fuck, but I mean, it kind of is. That was my lesson too, of like knowing how to say no and how to like work with that energy. because that energy can be a little manipulative, especially like, you know, who you, whatever type of practice they have. But yeah, that was my 2 cents on that experience.
And that also just comes down to your own discernment too. Like you said, your intuition was telling you one thing, but you still went with it because of that pressure, I guess, that of all the eyes there and all of that. And I just think that's an important lesson too, to still do, going back to the first message of doing what's best for you in the card of the day, despite what other people think you should do. And that can go, one direction or other. That's like if you are trying to be a doctor and you absolutely hate school, like medical school, but everybody's trying to pressure you into it because they think that's what's best for you and you hate it. Use your discernment and choose your own peace, for example. But Raina, I wanted to ask you too, you mentioned something a couple of days ago about I think you called it performance spirituality
Spiritual performance. Yeah,
yeah,
I was just about to bring that up too.
yeah, and I wanted to hear more about that, especially like right now, because we're currently filming in October, which is spooky season. So we see a whole lot of people doing that performance type spirituality when they're not really about it the rest of the year.
Yes, definitely. I think, especially during October, currently October, we're recording and filming this. And because of it being a time like this, and a lot of people love Halloween and they love spooky season and all that things, there are some spiritual practitioners that will start talking about topics like ancestors and things like that when they don't really always talk about that. And unfortunately, a lot of people are leaving Instagram almost because of these types of subjects. There's someone that I follow, the half-ass witch, and then a friend of mine, the hype priestess. So there's people that are deciding to leave Instagram and like not post as much because one, either people are stealing content because they see someone else talking about it and it's popular, or they're only talking about it something because it's trendy, like, and because it's what people are attracted to, just how businesses start talking about astrology when they've never talked about astrology before, but because it's trendy. Same way some spiritualists take upon the trend of ancestor work or death work or reading bones during October when they've never done that before, and like that's not even a part of their tradition, like against like lineage wise, you know what I mean? Or start talking about something that's not even a part of your lineage or nothing that you've ever been into. Like all of a sudden you're like, whoa, when did this happen? Like all of a sudden you love black and you love skulls and like all these things, but you never talk about that ever. And I think that's a red flag or like a sign or something that should be sus. Like, yo, watch out because all of a sudden they just decided to just capitalize on this. Like, if you're going to talk about, especially during October, because the veil is so thin, you're going to be talking about that kind of work. You better be doing that work all year long, like not just during October and not just. I think people, especially spiritualists, they get so caught up in like what spirituality is supposed to look like what is it supposed to like aesthetically, when it's like sometimes spirituality is not aesthetic, sometimes it's dirty or like it's not cute, or you know what I mean, it's not pretty. So we need to stop kind of like making this be like it's only a cute pretty thing when it's like sometimes you're crying. Sometimes, sometimes you get a reading or you do a Reiki session and you're like not in shambles, but you're like in shambles, like, or like you take a spiritual bath and it's like not full of roses, it's like kind of dirty and you get mucky. So it's like you can't really go off how things look because there's certain spiritualities that are putting on a performance to attract you or to try put on. But I mean, obviously, I think that unauthenticity can be sensed at all times, and that's why some people don't get as popular as others because people are like, I can smell that that's weird. But there's a lot of people performing right now in the spiritual community, and that's why there's people like that DM you saying weird stuff, and you're like, who is this person? My dad actually told me the other day he got scared. I haven't even told you guys about this. My dad called me yesterday, I think. It was like, Raina, I'm scared. Somebody DM me talking about Greetings, beloved. I have a
Oh
bunch of
God.
spells for you that you could use. Get rid of herpes, a bigger butt, bigger, like all types of crazy, like all types of crazy spells, like remove your ex, good luck, good money spell, win the lottery spells. Like, it's crazy.
Oh my gosh. That yeah, be careful of the posers. It's really unfortunately just oversaturated right now on all of social media, not just Instagram. They're on TikTok, they're on Facebook, they're on YouTube, like preying on people, trying to like stealing people's content, like Sosa was
They
saying earlier,
everywhere,
or
y'all.
and Raina was saying, stealing people's content and pictures and identities and pretending. So use your discernment, you guys. Really do your research. And I actually have a YouTube video up, if you guys, on my channel, Psychic Goddess Erica, about like signs to recognize those kinds of things. Because you just mentioned spell work, I always recommend to people, do not pay other people to do your spell work. Do your own energy work. Do your own energy work. And if anything, back in the day, my mentor, Goddess Rhonda, who we had in episode 4, if she, obviously I trust her, like she's my mentor from day one, but even she does, I do my own energy work. She might be on FaceTime with me, like helping me out and being a guiding source, but I don't allow other people to like do energy work for me. Don't do that. There's a lot of people that will scam that way too. And plus, it's on you to do your own spiritual healing. The other thing, Raina, when talking about performance spirituality, I also see that in a sense too of people not practicing what they preach. Like, let's say somebody is doing readings, and I understand there's sometimes when we are in our own transformative spaces, because I noticed that a theme in my life with my readings is either I will get clients that are experiencing something I've experienced in the past. And because I've experienced in the past, I have a little bit more knowledge in how to overcome and what's going on and how to help them. Or sometimes I'll get clients that are experiencing something similar to what I'm going through right now also. So then the reading that I give them also ends up benefiting me. But I also feel like there's performance spirituality in the sense of people that give readings and even give amazing advice to people about how to deal with their situation, but their life on the back end is in shambles because they don't practice what they preach, like, at all. They could have a toxic relationship that they don't plan on leaving. They could be having horrible like lifestyle habits, whatever it might be. So I think there's that, in a sense. It's also like performance spirituality, because it's like, if you're going to be spiritual and then promoting yourself in a certain way, yes, we all are human and we have our off days or even off point periods in time, but what are you doing? Are you actually practicing what you preach in terms of overcoming and healing in these spiritual practices, or are you just dishing it out to other people to get the money, you know?
Yeah, money and spirituality. Not to say that you can have a foundation through the energy work that you're here to provide, but are you working with source for everybody's highest good to be a demonstration of how we work with spirit to grow our prosperity and our generosity in the world? And these are all really, it's so funny because it's like we're talking about, like, you know, Halloween costumes and like all this like play, and I guess like there is like this voltage of energy that comes in during this time where discernment is super key. Check out Erica's deck on discernment. It will probably very helpful during this time. Yeah, that's actually the deck we used, yeah, for today. So that's like key. And it's, again, like remembering like you're your own source, like paying like our, I think our work honestly is knowing how to fine tune our intuition always, and like moment to moment, and like through readings or working with other people. And that's just not to say through readings, like for example, like when I'm at work, I can feel people's tension, or when I'm in groups, like it's knowing how to, me myself as a transmitter, how can I neutralize this, how can I bring more balance to the situation. It's kind of like, you know, if someone comes to you, a coworker or a friend comes with you just like with all this like drama and like thing that they're going through, like, are you going to see them as a victim or are you going to see them as a victor, in a sense of like holding them and the space at a high level for their progress and et cetera, and how to like move that energy. And also I was going to mention, it's also like our duty not to get so triggered by this. It's like it's good to see what this I don't want to say fakeness, but I guess this performance is. And it's like knowing how to like work with it, in the sense of like, if you need to take a break from social media, cool, but like don't let that defer you from serving your highest purpose, from really using your gifts. Because if we really like fall back and don't know how to use social media for our good, for our highest good, to deliver our message, to grow the business that we want to do, to show up in the world, etc., like don't get caught up into the negativity, or just the mindset of like, this will not this will never work for me, or like, this isn't my world, or everybody's being fake, or etc. Like, if it's happening again, it's like, if it's happening out there, it's happening within you. Like, who in me is triggered right now, and how did I attract this into my field? And that's a lot of vulnerability, because you have to really check yourself and really look at yourself, like, in what ways have I participated in these ways of performance? And I think we've all been there. And it takes a while of maturity. I would say people who, after their Saturn return, they probably experience a lot more like groundingness into like what is really authentic in their life. And some people haven't gone through those lessons. And for me, it's knowing how to apply compassion at the moment, so that I'm not being judgmental. And I could be very judgmental as a Leo moon and a Sagittarius sun. Yeah, I mean, that's part of my wound, is being judgmental. And lately I've been falling into like just being the observer. And if someone is, I think a lot of intuitive like us, we can really tell if someone's being authentic or not. But do we judge them? How do we hold space for them? Like, how do we hold the space for loving them? It's kind of like that saying of like, just like really loving the shadow, in that sense, or like going back to like what Raina was saying, like hugging her shadow self a few episodes ago. It's like, how do we do that with people who are outside of us, and how do we bridge into that? And that's my practice right now, especially being in a new environment and things are really different. I'm working with different groups of people. It's like, how do you, like, being a master of your own energy? It's kind of like what we're here to do. And again, I think like Erica, you mentioned this, people want like a straight up answer, or like how to, Arena mentioned this too, like how to, like, energy is not really like how to, like, it's kind of like, how do you apply yourself moment to moment? It's always going to be changing all the time. And I know that's something that people don't want to hear, but it's the truth, y'all. And like, things are constantly always going to be changing. And then I guess that goes back to like not holding expectations to anything at all, even oneself.
Yeah, the expectations thing is really, really big. Another thing too is we keep talking about like open-minded and going with trust. For example, readings I've received in the past, there are times in the moment it may feel so vague, right? It may sound or feel vague, but as time goes on, you think back, especially if you have it recorded or written down, and you go back and you look and like, you realize this was so detailed. And that's because if you're open-minded and you trust and you're open to experiencing life, then the universe, in a sense, it almost like it fills in the blanks. And then you look back and you're like, wow, this reading wasn't vague at all. But then there's been times in the opposite end. I've had readings from other people back in the day. I don't really get readings from a lot of people now because I kind of just trust in my own abilities. And then I have the few here right now on this podcast. And of course, God is Rhonda, and maybe one or two others that I really trust if I really need it. But in the past, back in the day when I was obsessed with readings because I was excited and I was getting into this world, right? Just learning back in the day. The people that I found, I don't know about you guys, but I found that the people that give too much specific detail, after time went on, they were so wrong. I remember I had readings and they're like, this person is gonna have glasses sometimes and this and that, and their skin tone, or they have this initial and this and that, like so many details. And it's so detailed in the moment, and they're so confident in their delivery that you're like, man, I guess that's a form of performance spirituality too, kind of like Miss Cleo. But later on they ended up being wrong. And then the people that seemed vague to me as time went on ended up being accurate and detailed. Is just not always what you think it's going to be in that moment, you know, because it's kind of like a vision board too. Like I had a pyramid on my vision board, and I live in Long Beach. When we moved, there's a pyramid outside that's on the campus, the university campus. So it's like, in my mind, in the moment, that was for a specific place, but it still played out, like seemed vague in the moment, and it's still here. That's like an example. I don't know if it makes sense. It made sense in my head, but so just be open-minded is what I'm trying to say. And don't always hold on to too many of the specifics, in a sense, because there's room for change and there's room for growth, and you're meant to live into a lot of the answers. So use it as like a guiding tool, but not the end all be all.
I definitely totally agree with the time frame and everything. I wanted to bring up an example when I had a reading with someone, and I was actually using one of your decks, and so the card that came out was marriage proposal and family and kids, and she wasn't talking to anybody and didn't plan on talking to anybody anytime soon. And even I like started like feeling like, oh man, like what is coming out right now? Like this is even very vague for me to even put the pieces together. And I kid you not, 6 to 4 months later, she met this dude, and this guy was like, or not even met this dude, reconnected with someone from her childhood, and he was like, I'm looking for a wife, and I want to have kids, and actually proposed to her, and all this crazy stuff. Like, he was crazy, and obviously doing that, just barely meeting her. But we ended up, the card ended up being right, and it was very vague, and like, we were like, I was like, but I can't doubt what comes up. I just have to take the messages as they roll. You may not, I might not even understand it at the time, but something's happening, and you have to be open and allow it. And because we both were like, oh well, we'll just see what happens, she comes back, and we're later, she's like, dude, you were right about that reading, like it did happen, and blah blah blah. And I never would have thought. She's like, the cards, like they were so confusing at the time, but now I get it. And then oh, my cat. And I don't, she agrees. And just be open-minded, guys, because, and also it's like I love readings because it's like a puzzle we're putting together, almost, in a way. Like this is like a picture that's being painted, and we're trying to like write the description for the picture for somebody that's blind. But yes.
Oh, these were such good conversations. And if you're listening to this or watching this, like, please share your experience. I feel like it's very important to share our journeys and how we work with spirit, how we work with energy, what we're going through, what we have been feeling. For October, definitely comment, especially on the YouTube. That seems to be like a hub for conversations on these episodes, or Instagram. And again, let us know other topics that you would like for us to talk about. We have a few more episodes before we close the season, and then we're going to take a break. And our next recording will be in Los Angeles, back in the studio at Pink Cloud. Yeah, I'll be visiting LA for a little bit from Kauai. This has been a very beautiful conversation. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Runa, for sharing all of those like gems with us. Thank you all for watching. Definitely check us out and share with your homies, with your friends. If you're compelled to also support us, definitely buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/bridgebetween. Thank you again to Jasmine, who joined us last episode. Rhonda, who's definitely jumped on here as well. We do have one more special guest for the season that we'll keep that as a gem. We're very grateful to have this community and gather and grow in this way. And sending you lots of love and aloha from Kauai. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.